Today, we are talking about cryptocurrency because as we try to balance the busy, we want to know a little bit about all the things that help us to enrich our lives and, do a whole lot more of that less, but better. And here's the thing. We women, we want to know about money. We want to be financially independent. We want to know how to make our money work for us. And add to that the fact that we actually know more than we think we do. We as women are typically the ones on average who are managing the household budget, the household finances. And yet we often stop there. But why? Why aren't we working to also be in charge of our investing so that we can get our money working for us? So let's have a conversation about cryptocurrency with CEO and co-founder of the CryptoMom app. Her name is Kendra Cole. She's absolutely wonderful, a mother of three, and her past comes as a public relations and marketing veteran with over 13 years plus experience working with global and startup brands. She earned her master's degree in communications management from University of Southern California and a BS from Howard University. And then come pandemic time, she got curious about crypto. All right, let's get into this conversation and get curious about crypto ourselves. Kendra, thank you so much for being on the Balancing Busy podcast. I am so excited to get into cryptocurrency with you because this is not a topic that I think women honestly have together that often.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you about this. And you know what, to be honest, I want to be transparent. Even when I first started, I started getting into it about almost 3 years ago now. I was a basic beginner. I had no idea how to start. I started during the pandemic and because I was bored, we didn't have anything else to do. And so from there, that's just kind of how I got started. So I'm really excited to talk to you and hear from your listeners and talk to your listeners just about, kind of like the basics and what does it mean for us?
Yes. Okay. So as I was preparing for this, I realized I've had several conversations about cryptocurrency. We actually have a friend who is very, that is his career. And so we, a year or so ago, we went to Mexico for a weekend. Our airport happens to be 2.5 hours away. I literally spent all 2.5 hours just asking him questions about all of it. But I realized I have never talked to a woman about cryptocurrency. And that's kind of basically why I'm so excited about this episode, because just realizing and understanding, we as women want to understand this too, but it does feel intimidating and a little sketchy and scary and just a lot of things. So, okay, I want to know more about how you got into cryptocurrency. Because we all had boredom in pandemic. I don't think there's that many of us who were like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to study and learn cryptocurrency. So where did this come from?
Fair, very fair. So my husband, who's also my technical co-founder for our platform that we created called the CryptoMom app. So he was actually in crypto previously to this. So he was a CTO of a B2B crypto company. So I would hear him talk about crypto at home, but even still, it completely went over my head. And so part of that was my motivation to, be able to connect with him and be able to really kind of understand his business. The more I got into it though, I had him to kind of bounce questions off of to kind of get started. But then I was like, where do I find my community? How do I find more women about this? And so I brought my best friend in, she brought a friend in, and then she brought a friend in. And so now we actually have this, and we still have it to this day, this text chain of all of us who we kind of just ask questions to. We say, hey, are you buying this week? Hey, are you selling this week? And so we kind of created our own little community. But through the pandemic, I realized, again, I was really seeking that community. I was pregnant. We had gotten pregnant with our third child. And I was like, okay, I get it. The buying and selling, made a couple $100 here and there. Is there anything else more that we could do with this? Let's get creative. What if I wanted to start, a college fund for our kids? Our kids are small. We have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and now a 1-year-old. So at the time I was pregnant with our third. So, that family planning in terms of thinking about their futures is really important to me. And so I said, how do we get creative with this? Can we start a 529 education plan? Or like, what if we want to one day come out of the pandemic and go on vacation? Can we start a vacation fund funded by Bitcoin? And at the time, my husband was like, I don't know. I don't know how we would do that. And so I looked and I was searching. I couldn't find anything. I wanted to gift it. I have nieces and nephews, graduation, their graduations. What about like going back to school? Is there something that I can do to support their futures? There was no way to do that. And so, being pregnant with a third and two little ones at home, why not start a business? Build our own tech
Perfect
platform.
timing.
Exactly. And so that's how I got into it, honestly. And that's how we founded the CryptoMom app.
That is so amazing. Okay. So let's start by talking about what is cryptocurrency. And I think we'll start with what is cryptocurrency, but I know a lot of people, when they hear it, they hear Bitcoin. And so let's kind of explain what Bitcoin is, and that it's not the only one, and, how that makes up what cryptocurrency is.
Sure. So we'll start at the basics again. Cryptocurrency is just a digital currency. That's all it is. Bitcoin, it's the world's largest, and it's the most popular cryptocurrency. So there are other types of coins, and that's what you call an altcoin. So there's something like, if you've heard of Ethereum or Solana, those are what you call altcoins. I kind of like to make the comparison of like Kim Kardashian is like the Bitcoin, and the other altcoins are like the rest of the Kardashian and the Jenner.
That is so good.
Just
that's so funny.
Sort of like frame of reference. And then from there, you know what? Like, I think, and again, not to get too far into the weeds, but, all of these different coins, they have different utilities. So you have like payment tokens. You have like tokens that are for like central bank currencies. But mostly, they have different utilities. And so that's kind of where you get into. Some coins are used more so for gaming. And our purposes, when we created the CryptoMom app, we knew that because Bitcoin was the most popular cryptocurrency, and we're thinking about, potentially long-term investing, kind of setting and forgetting your investments, we decided to, stick with just Bitcoin. There are a lot of different coins and projects that come up, but oftentimes, like to your point, it can be spammy. You never know what to trust. And Bitcoin's been around since 2009. So we said, okay, if we look at the scope of this, we think that Bitcoin is going to be here to stay. And so we know that women tend to like to have long-term investments, and they're actually prior to popular belief, women are actually much better investors than men because we take our time to research, and we also like to set and forget our investments, which means we take a longer term approach to it. So that's really why we stuck with Bitcoin. And I think that using traditional investment vehicles that are funded by Bitcoin allow us to incorporate crypto as a part of our wealth building journey in an organic, meaningful way without having to get so far down into the weeds of, all of the nitty gritty and the jargon.
Okay. So good. So one of the best explanations that I have heard about explaining cryptocurrency was just recognizing that cryptocurrency, as you said, it's a digital currency, right? So it's a string of numbers that essentially makes up that currency. And that can feel a little bit confusing. But if we look at any bill, right? If I was to pull out a dollar bill right now, there is going to be, I think it's up in the kind of right corner, there's going to be a string of numbers and letters. And that is so that the federal government can keep track of that bill, so that the reasoning being that they would be able to track where all money is and how much has been printed and all those kind of things. So it's similar to that. It's just that it's all digital. There's no tangible paper version for the most part. Right?
Exactly. And that's kind of where the blockchain mining comes in. So when you're on the blockchain, it's a secure way to verify all of the Bitcoin transactions. Again, very similar to if you were to have a bank and you had like a bank statement. This is just a digital way to make sure that we're tracking all of those Bitcoin transactions on a global ledger. So, this is just on a global level.
Okay. And with Bitcoin, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand with Bitcoin, you have, basically like 1 million computers throughout the world, and they each have a part. So when you think about hacking, it's not the same thing where you're hacking into one server, one place. There's millions of them. You'd have to hack into 500,000 different servers at the exact same time in order to be able to hack through Bitcoin, which is again why Bitcoin's considered one of the safest, right? And it's the one that's been around the longest. They've invested the most money into their safeguards, where maybe some smaller ones that come up wouldn't have that kind of security and safety. So, when you're hearing about hacking, that's going to probably be these smaller, other kind of, I don't know if pop-up's the right word, but other, cryptocurrencies that are coming in. Is that about right?
Yeah. So, and that's kind of like, and what you're kind of describing, there's this concept called hashing, where it like basically, it's kind of like you kind of scramble like the information so that way it's very secure. So sort of in the same way that like when you put your password into, let's say like an online database, as opposed to like an encryption where you put the actual, like if your password is testing 123.
I was going to say is password.
Yeah, or is password. Exactly. When you put password in, as opposed to encryption where you actually put password in and then it takes that and it scrambles it. Literally hashing is like when you put password in, they don't even see password. It's already scrambled and encrypted. So that way it's much more secure and safe, to your point, is exactly what you were saying.
And not only is it like scrambled, it's scrambled and a different piece is on dozens or hundreds of different servers, right? So you can't even, it's not even on one. It's like one number is here and one number is in this country. And okay, so there's thousands of cryptocurrencies, and it's really just like we have thousands of currencies, right? Like we have the euro, the yen, the dollar, the pound, and some are weaker and some are stronger in
Yes.
our, what the currency that we're used to. There's definitely the currencies that are much stronger. There's ones that are much weaker. And that's really what we're looking at with cryptocurrencies as well.
Exactly. And one of the things I always like to clarify too is that, people often say, well, like, how do we know that this is valid? Or how do we know that we can trust this? In the same way that, when you come to the United States, the only currency that the United States government recognizes is the US dollar. If you go if you go over to London, they recognize the pound. That's just their currency that they use there. So I always like to make that comparison too, because oftentimes we often think that the US dollar, can be used anywhere in the world. And not necessarily. You would have to go to another country, exchange it for their currency that they value in their country. So it's kind of very much the same too. And I think the other thing too is like, one thing that I would love to discuss too is just thinking about like, how is cryptocurrency, different from like investing in stocks? Cause I think oftentimes the other thing is that when we say, well, why would I invest in crypto? Why wouldn't I just invest in real estate or stocks? There are lots of similarities to them as well. They're both risk assets. And so there's definitely a certain level of risk. You can purchase certain stocks just like you can purchase certain cryptocurrencies. One of the main differences is that, stocks are, categorized as a security, which means when you purchase a piece of a stock, you're purchasing part ownership in a company. As opposed to crypto or like Bitcoin is considered a commodity, and a commodity is like gold. So the more that somebody consumes gold or the more that somebody consumes Bitcoin, it drives the price up. So they're very similar. They're very kind of similar in that way as well.
Oh, that was really good. And yeah, that is so helpful. So as we're thinking about investing, how does one invest in crypto?
Yeah. So there's a number of ways. So first you can go to an exchange and you can buy that way. So there's exchanges like Coinbase or Gemini. You can go on there and you can invest that way. Oftentimes, like if you're going to buy something like an NFT, you do need your own wallet, or a ledger, and that's a separate key that you need to be able to have on your own. Now, as you kind of get into that process, it can be a very long, complicated process to learn about how, how do you set up your key? Well, how is it funded? When I looked at that problem, that was a challenge that I had when I first started. And I think that as women and as moms, we already have a million things on our list to do. And if I want to buy, I want to be able to do this in a simple way, something that's straightforward, but also in a place that prioritizes the things that I think are important, whether it's like investing in myself, like what if I want to go on a girls trip, or investing in my kids' future. And so those are some of the things, that's what we took into account when we created the CryptoMom app. So on our platform, you can go on and you can buy Bitcoin in just 3 easy steps. You literally connect your bank with an enterprise grade bank company called Plaid. That's one of our partners. Coinbase uses them, Robinhood uses them, literally everybody uses them. And then you can just buy Bitcoin in 3 easy steps. And then you take that Bitcoin and you allocate it to something a fund that's meaningful to you. So for example, when I wanted to invest, I wanted to create a college fund. So I have now 3 different funds that I am allocating to each of my kids. And I have a reoccurring investment that I set for myself, and I forget about it. And I check my investments like maybe once a month, maybe once every other month. But again, I wanted to make it simple and I wanted to make it easy to understand, because I want to go out and enjoy my life with my kids. I want to go enjoy, life with my husband and my friends. And I don't want to necessarily be sitting in front of my computer for 2-3 hours at a time, trying to just figure out how to get involved in this. Women have enough on their plates where they don't need to be bogged down with, something that's super complicated and even expensive sometimes.
Yes. Okay. So as you were saying all of this, one of the thoughts that came into my head was when you are investing in the stock market, I'm sure everyone has heard the idea of you buy low, sell high, right? So how do we compare that? Is that the same with cryptocurrency? Are we trying to buy low and sell high? And when you're looking each month, okay, what's everything? What are you looking for? What are you hoping to see? Kind of walk us through some of that part.
Sure. Yeah. So I will say that I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't necessarily give advice in terms of how to invest. What I can say is that for myself, when I look at my investments, for me, I look at, again, I will say to you, I want to give a caveat that you don't want to get too bogged down in the actual price of Bitcoin, because you're going to see that Bitcoin is $17,000, $20,000. You don't necessarily need to
you're not buying a whole coin.
Yeah, you're not buying one whole. You're buying just a fraction of it. So on our platform, you can buy as low as $20. So we wanted to make sure that it was accessible for people to get in. So, I'm buying a fraction of a Bitcoin, and I started with $100. So again, it's when I'm thinking about what my goals are for this in particular, I'm thinking about saving for my kids' college. So my oldest daughter is 6. So that'll be another 12 years from now. So I kind of look at it like, okay, if I put in $100 today and I kind of just track it, and it's, I expect for it to go up some months. I expect for it to go down some months. But I am looking at the long-term goal of this. And my goal is that in the next, 10 years or so, that $100 that I invested today is going to yield 10x, 20x, or whatever it may be. And for me, my goals, that would be a success for me. Now, maybe if I'm investing in something that, if I want to save for something that is maybe sooner, like, I don't know, it's back to school, where the kids are starting to go back to school. So maybe I'm thinking about winter break. Maybe I might want to invest a little bit more. And then when I see that there's a big uptick in the price, I might sell, because I know that if I'm saving for this, our winter break that's coming up, or winter break vacation, I'm going to want to be able to, get some gains quicker. So I think it just really depends on what your goals are. And when you can know what your goals are, then you can set up a strategy that works best for you and your family.
I like that. I remember reading a book years ago about financial investing, and it was specifically for women. And one of the things that she really pushed was like, just get started. Starting is the hardest, scariest part. I actually was having this conversation recently with one of my kids on, a different topic, but just something they were feeling really overwhelmed by. The whole thing just was brand new. It was scary. And I gave them the advice. This is actually in another podcast episode as well, but just set a timer for 15 minutes and see how far you can go, right? And just get started. Yeah. But as you were saying this, this idea of being able to start with $20. I think we can each look at the number that we say, you know what, honestly, if that amount of money just was gone, I would be fine, right? Maybe that's $20. Maybe that's, we could all look at our bank statement and be like, how on earth did I spend that much on? Mine's going to be Amazon. I'll just admit it. Mine will definitely be Amazon. And I will be like, how did I manage that? And so
Mine is Instacart. And
I love the Instacart.
So much money on Instacart every week.
I try to push this all the time. And I feel like so many women want to be like, oh, but you're paying more, whatever. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not, because if I am in the grocery store, you can't believe what else I added into the cart when I'm walking up and down. But when someone else does it for me, I might be paying a little bit more per amount, but long run, I am saving. Not just that. It is the most incredible feeling when you and I have been working and all of a sudden we realize groceries are delivered and it's like
magically at your door.
Yes, I didn't have to do that. Oh, it's so good. I'm so with you. Okay. All right. So this idea of, yes, looking at, okay, how much could I spend where honestly, I'm not going to notice if it's there or not. It's one night me choosing not to go out to dinner or whatever it is, and just taking action and starting, because starting is the hardest part.
You're I'm so glad that you brought that up, because often I think as women, and I will say that when I've talked to thousands of women when we go out to different conferences and podcasts and things like that, and women, we often have a confidence gap when we talk about our finances and we think about our relationships with money. We think that we're much worse with money than we really are. We think that we don't know as much than we really do. And so I really just encourage you to first, if there is something in your brain that is telling you that you cannot do this, bye-bye. Push that voice out of your head and say, actually, no. Because you know what? We women, we birth the babies. We take care of our families. We have done harder things than trying to get involved in cryptocurrency. And if you can do that, then you can do anything. And so again, like you said, I think it's just ripping the Band-Aid and starting today. You can start as small as $20 and you do what you feel comfortable with. You do what and I always say too, don't invest more than like you said, feel comfortable with losing. If it's $20, okay, I'm not going to get my iced chai tea latte this week. And that is, all week. And that is the money that I'm comfortable with investing. And that is totally 100% fine.
Yes. And I want to say there is something so incredible that happens when we take these little steps. I still remember when I went to set up my Roth IRA, right? First time. And I was so intimidated, but I'd read the book and it said, just do it. And then, I started to get stuck on well, who do I choose? Which company am I going? There's so many blocks along the way that can hold us back, and just that power of pushing through and actually setting it up and doing it. I was walking taller as soon as it was done. I was like, yep, that's right. I'm the kind of woman who has a Roth IRA.
That's right.
That's the kind of person and the funniest thing is 10 minutes earlier, I was the kind of person who was like, this is scary. I don't know what to do. Right. Yes. But you push through and you just start the thing. And
start. Absolutely.
Yes.
You just start. And I think to that point, that's really what we wanted to make even the onboarding process really simple. We ask you a couple of questions, basic questions, and we want to get to know you. We want to get to know what your priorities are, but then get to it. Buy it in 3 easy steps and let's move on, because we have a million things on our to-do list. And I agree. I remember the first time that I bought, I purchased Bitcoin for the very first time and I felt so personally accomplished. And you just won't know how you will feel until you make that first purchase. And I promise you, you can do this. You can do it. Once you do it, your confidence is going to go through the roof. And I promise you, I bet you that you are more educated about this than you think. You know more than you think. And so I always just encourage women to believe in themselves and just take that first step.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. And I agree with you. I think we know more than we give ourselves credit. Let's just be honest. We went to the same schools, the same classrooms as men our whole lives. They were not taken off and secretly taught a class on money and investing that we were left out of. They just kind of show up pretending they know more and they just go with it. We need to do the same thing. We need to just show up and do it and take the action and take control of our finances. You know, this idea that we as women are the ones managing the majority, are managing our households. Why on earth are we not then helping to manage our investments and make our money work for us? Oh, yes.
Yeah. And surprisingly, studies actually show that like women actually control majority of the family money and the family money decisions. We make those decisions. And we know more than we give ourselves credit for, to your point. And so that's why when it comes to this, like, I really truly think that, the success of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin really does lie with women, because when women get on board with this, we are going to be the ones to take this to the next level, to make this truly accessible, to give it new meaning, and to really help it support us in our larger wealth building journeys. We know about the wage gap. We know about the challenges that women have when it comes to negotiating salaries. And so I even think conversations like this are so helpful, because part of the problem is that, you want to start these conversations early and often. And there's no better time to start having those conversations than now. Because if like, for me, nobody talked to me when I was a kid about like money. At most, my stepdad talked to me about balancing a checkbook. But I don't ever really remember somebody sitting me down and really talking to me about credit or things like that. And so we can be the change that we want to see. And so, one of the things that gives me the most inspiration is that when we go to pitch competitions or we're doing podcasts or things like that, and my daughters hear us talking about this, and they're, literally last night, they were doing an art project on the floor, and they were like, okay, Mom, well, you have CryptoMom, but we're going to make crypto kids. And that's where we do the blockchain and we do this and this is my little daughter, Rain, who's 3 years old, and her and Callie are talking about coming up with something called Crypto Kids. And I have no idea what that is, but that lets me know that like they're hearing these conversations and like their entire existence. I'm starting to get teared up, but their entire existence and their relationship with money is going to be so wildly different than mine. And they are just going to be like way past anything that I could have ever imagined for them. And so I think, as women and moms, like, as long as we're having those conversations early with our kids, giving them the tools, equipping ourselves with the tools so that we can give them the tools and to expose them in a way that's safe and secure for them. I think that that's really what the key is as well.
Oh, yes, so good. Okay, to wrap this all up, the one thing that I think maybe everyone is a little bit still unsure on is, how do we actually use our cryptocurrency? So, they go in, they put the money, they start investing that $20. And how do they use cryptocurrency in everyday life, or just, I know you've talked to us about creating almost these accounts that are like a college savings, and right. So then you're taking a mass withdrawal once you start paying for tuition. But how else can we look at using cryptocurrency in everyday life?
Yeah. So, I think what's really interesting is that we're really starting to see cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in everyday life. I believe Whole Foods actually even takes Bitcoin transactions. So I think what we're going to start to see is you're going to start to see it being incorporated in everyday life. Oftentimes, if you go to gas stations or different places, you'll see Bitcoin ATMs. So there's a way for you to actually, exchange out your USD for Bitcoin. And so I think that as we see these larger corporations adopting it in ways that are, that are familiar to our everyday lives. I think that also kind of lowers the barrier for entry as well. And we can see it saying, oh, okay, well, if I go to Whole Foods and I can buy it here, or there's a Bitcoin ATM that's around there, I can do that as well. And so I think that, I think that that also will just help with the adoption of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin as well. And really just like trying to demystify it, make it accessible, make it understandable, and so that you can use it in your everyday life as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I had forgotten about that. I had heard about it being at Whole Foods, being accepted there. So let's say someone has, $1,000 in their cryptocurrency and they're like, oh, I need that. I need it to now turn into USD or US dollars.
Yeah.
How do they go about doing that?
Yeah. So it depends on where you bought it. So let's say if you're on the CryptoMom app, you can just reach out to us, reach out to the portal that's in your account, and you just let us know that you want to sell. And typically it takes about 3 to 5 business days to process. And that's more so just because that's how long the banks take to clear ACH. But then after that, it's up to you. You can have it and you can use it however you see fit.
Okay. So very similar to, I'm going to bring this back to stocks. My dad was a stockbroker growing up. So this is one I'm familiar with. So bringing this back to stocks, it's the equivalent of you're selling your stocks and then that money would go back into your account. You're selling your cryptocurrency. That money would go back into your federal bank account. Obviously your crypto is also, your account of money. Okay. Amazing. Oh, yes, this has been so good. Thank you so much, Kendra. I feel like I have learned so much and now I'm just so excited to get on that app and like put in mine and like start mine in my 3 easy steps. That's awesome. So thank you. Will you just quickly tell everybody where we can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow us on social media at the CryptoMom app. You can go to our website, thecryptomom.app too. Right now we're signing on early users. So, you can join our waitlist and then we'll be onboarding early users as well. And then my name is Kendra Cole. So I'm often tagged in, all of our posts on the CryptoMom app as well. So please feel free to follow me. I love answering questions. We do a lot of like fun educational stuff on our Instagram and our TikTok. So, please feel free to comment, message us. We're here to be a resource to women and moms everywhere.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I absolutely love learning new things about new things and just getting to have a conversation about cryptocurrency, which is one of those things where you're like, what? It's just hard to know how to talk about it. Oh, this was so much fun. And here are really the 2 biggest takeaways for me. Number 1, have you noticed the same theme that I am noticing in all of these different interviews? The power of having conversations, of creating that community. I mean, Kendra shared she has this text thread of girlfriends where they're talking about crypto. When we had the conversation and we were talking all about menopause, we learned that our symptoms actually decrease when we have conversations with other women about perimenopause and menopause. We learned that one of the biggest things we need when it comes to burnout was community, friendship, someone to talk with. Oh, sisters, we need each other. And I feel like just once again, that is being driven home for me. So that is number 1 takeaway. Number 2 takeaway is whatever your thing is, whether it's wanting to get better at investing and being like, hey, I want to try cryptocurrency, or it's something else. The hardest part is always going to be starting. This podcast, the hardest part was just starting. And once I got that 5-minute, it's actually like 2.5 minutes, trailer episode out and it was live, that was the hardest part. The rest of this, it has been so fun and so much easier than I made it out to be in my head, and certainly than just getting started was. So let's create our communities and let's start that thing. Whatever your thing is that feels daunting, that feels intimidated, you are not going to know how capable you are until you get to the other side. And the only way we get to the other side is by starting. All right, this is the Balancing Busy podcast, where I help busy women learn how to do less but better so that you can live a life that lights you up without compromising your health, your home, or your happiness. I cannot wait to see you next week in our next episode. But for this one, who do you want to talk about crypto with? Share this episode with her and start a conversation. Start creating your community around financial abundance, around investing. And you can start by just sharing this episode with a friend. All right, I'll see you next week.